You are earning decent money, not rich money, but real money, enough that you should feel okay. Enough that when you do the math in your head on a good day, it all seems like it should be working. And yet every single month without fail, you open your banking app somewhere around the 25th and there it is. That number, that same low, deflating number sitting in your account like a quiet accusation. And the worst part is you cannot even point to where it went. There was no big purchase, no emergency. No dramatic moment where you made a terrible decision. It just evaporated. $12 here for something you subscribed to and forgot about. $40 on a Tuesday night because you were tired and just did not want to cook. $22 on a parking situation that could have been avoided. Coffee, a jacket you almost returned, a game, a download, a convenience fee. Individually, each one is completely forgettable. Together, they consumed $600 you do not remember spending, and now you are 3 days from payday running on fumes again. And what you feel in that moment is not panic. It is something quieter and honestly worse than panic. It is a low hum of anxiety, the kind that does not go away when you close the app. The kind that sits behind every work conversation, every social plan, every moment where you think about the future and feel a little less like yourself. You are not broke, but you do not feel free either. And that gap, that specific uncomfortable gap between earning and actually building anything, is exactly what we are going to close today. If this is your first time on this channel, subscribe right now because this is what we do here. We talk about the psychology underneath the money decisions, not just the rules, the reasons. I am David Marshall and I have spent over a decade obsessed with what I call the quiet turning points of wealth building, not the dramatic lottery win moments, not the get-rich-quick pivots. The small, almost invisible moments where someone changes one thing and their entire financial trajectory starts bending in a different direction. Today's video is about one of those moments, and it starts with $500 a month. Let me tell you about the problem before I tell you about the solution because I think most financial content skips this part, and that is exactly why people watch it, feel good, and then do nothing. Here is the real problem. Most people live in what I call financial present tense. Everything they think about financially is about right now. Can I afford this right now? Will I have enough this month? What is in my account right now? And this is not a character flaw. This is what financial pressure does to the brain. When you are worried about making it to the next paycheck, your brain literally narrows its focus to the immediate. It is a stress response. It is biology. But here is the devastating consequence of living in financial present tense. You never build anything. Because building requires thinking about later. Building requires making a decision today that your present self gets nothing from so that your future self has options your present self cannot even imagine yet. And if all of your mental energy is consumed by right now, later never arrives. The $500 habit is not about the money as much as it is about breaking you out of permanent financial present tense and giving you a system that quietly, automatically starts building your future while you are busy living your present. And I am going to break it down into 3 very specific buckets because this only works if it is clear enough to actually do. Here is the system, $500 split 3 ways. The first $200 goes into what I call your friction fund, not an emergency fund. I want you to forget that term because nobody ever actually uses their emergency fund on real emergencies. I want you to think about the actual frictions of your real life. Your car registration comes due once a year. Your dentist appointment is not covered the way you thought it was. Your best friend is getting married and you are in the wedding. Your dog needs a vet visit. Your laptop charger breaks at the worst possible time. None of these are emergencies, they are just life. Irregular life, predictable in category, unpredictable in timing. And every single time one of them shows up and you are not ready for it, it wipes out whatever small progress you made and sends you back to zero. The friction fund, $200 a month set aside specifically for the textured, ordinary cost of being alive, is what stops life from constantly resetting your progress. After 3 months, you have $600 sitting there. After 6 months, you have $1,200. And the next time something real happens, you just pay it. No credit card, no panic spiral, no starting over. You just pay it and keep going. The second $200 goes into an index fund. I am not going to spend 20 minutes explaining which one because this video is about psychology, not portfolio construction. But if you want a starting point, a simple broad market index fund that tracks the overall stock market is the foundation most ordinary millionaires in America built their wealth on. You do not need to be clever, you do not need to time anything. You need to put $200 in every month and leave it there. In 10 years, that habit at an average historical return creates something that starts to feel like a different life. The math is not magic, it is just time and consistency doing what they do. You are planting the tree we talked about last week. $200 a month is how most people actually plant it, not with one dramatic investment, with this. Consistently every single month. The third $100 is what makes this whole system sustainable in a way every other budget you have tried has not been. $100 for what I call intentional enjoyment. This is not leftover money. This is not what you have after everything else. This is money you have pre-decided to spend on something that genuinely makes your life feel like your life. A nice dinner, a weekend trip, tickets to something, a hobby, whatever makes you feel like you are actually living and not just accounting. And I am putting it in the system on purpose because here is what I have seen happen over and over again with people who try to save seriously for the first time. They go all in on restriction, they cut everything. They feel disciplined for 3 weeks. And then one regular Thursday, they spend $80 at a restaurant because they just needed to breathe. And then they feel like they failed. And then the whole system collapses. The $100 for intentional enjoyment is your system telling you in advance that you are allowed to enjoy your life, that this is not punishment, that building wealth and actually living are not opposites. When enjoyment is built in, restriction does not feel like deprivation. It just feels like being organized. Now here is the piece that most people miss even when they understand all 3 buckets. And this is where the real psychology lives. You cannot make this work with willpower. You cannot. I say this with complete confidence because willpower is one of the most overestimated resources in personal finance. Every decision you make throughout the day, every small choice, every resistance to an impulse, it costs something. Psychologists call it decision fatigue. By the time you get home from work and you have made several hundred micro decisions since you woke up, your brain does not want to make one more. It wants to order food, it wants to spend, it wants the easy thing. And that is the moment where good savings intentions die every single month. That Tuesday night when you do not feel like cooking is not a failure of character. It is a failure of system design. This is why the single most important move you can make with this $500 system is to automate every piece of it. Set it up so that on the day your paycheck hits, $200 moves to a separate savings account labeled Friction Fund, $200 moves to your brokerage account and buys your index fund automatically, and $100 moves to a spending account that exists purely for enjoyment. You never decide to do this, it just happens. The same way rent happens, the same way your phone bill happens. You are removing the choice from the equation entirely. Because when saving requires a decision, you will eventually make the wrong one. When saving requires no decision, it just becomes part of how your money moves. And that is the entire ballgame. But I want to tell you about something even more powerful than the money itself. Something that I think is the real reason this habit changes everything, and it has nothing to do with the dollar amount. When you do this consistently, when you actually follow the system for 6 months, something starts to shift in how you see yourself, not your bank balance. You on the inside, you start to think of yourself as someone who saves. And that sounds like a small thing, but it is not. It is an identity shift. And identity is the most powerful driver of behavior that exists. When you believe you are a saver, when that is just part of who you are now, making the decision to save becomes almost effortless because you are not fighting yourself anymore. You are just acting like yourself. Psychologists have a term for this. It is called identity compounding. The behavior creates the belief, and then the belief drives more behavior, and the loop builds on itself until what felt like a discipline becomes just a natural expression of who you are. 6 months of this system and you will not recognize how you used to think about money. Not because the $500 made you rich, but because the habit made you someone different. Here is where I want to leave you today. That low hum of financial anxiety you started this video with, the one that follows you out of the banking app and into the rest of your day, that hum has a very specific cause. It is the sound of someone who is earning in the present and spending in the present and building nothing for later. $500 a month split into a friction fund and an index fund and intentional enjoyment, automated from the moment your paycheck lands, practiced long enough that it rewires who you believe you are. That is the quiet turning point. That is the moment the hum starts to get softer. Not because you suddenly have a lot, but because you have a system, because later is finally becoming real. Because you are no longer just surviving your month, you're slowly, quietly actually building something. People think wealth is about the big dramatic number, the $1 million moment, but the people who actually get there almost all tell you the same thing. It was not one big thing. It was one small consistent thing done long enough that it compounded into something they could not have imagined from the beginning. This is that thing. $500 a month, 3 buckets, automated, repeated. That is more oxygen in the room. That is less weight behind every decision you make. That is your own life slowly coming back under your own control. If this landed for you today, subscribe to David Marshall Finance right now, because every single week we go deeper into the psychology that sits underneath the money choices most people make on autopilot without ever questioning why. Like this video if it shifted something. And tell me in the comments below, what is the one thing draining your account every month that you can barely even track? I genuinely want to know. I read every comment, and I will see you in the next one.